I've been collecting horror stuff for 15 years, and yet to date, nothing has ever hit me like the Freddy Fazbear animatronic I bought at Grimwood Auctions last month. 7 feet tall, matted fur, creepy as hell. The Fazbear was perfect for my farmhouse collection. Just a heads up, man. That thing's got a bad history. Came from a pizza place that shut down right after they bought it, the auction guy told me as we signed the papers. I laughed. They all have stories. Help sell them, right? 12 grand later, Freddy was mine. The delivery guys had trouble getting it through my front door. The thing was heavier than it looked. We wedged it into the corner of my living room by the window somehow, where it sat through the day with its mouth hung open and this permanent grin and those eyes that seemed to follow you around. That evening, a storm hit. Heavy rain hammered the windows. Wind tore through the trees. By dinner, I'd lost cell service. The isolation didn't bother me, though. It was part of the reason why I had bought the house in the first place. Around midnight, a loud crash woke me up. Sounded like a tree fell, but as I listened, something felt wrong. The house had gone dead quiet despite the storm outside. I grabbed my phone's flashlight and went downstairs. The living room looked different. It took me a second to realize why. When I did, my stomach dropped. The chair where Freddy sat was empty. I swept the flashlight around, looking for where it fell. Some old animatronics have backup battery packs that can last for hours. Maybe the storm triggered something and it moved a few steps. Before I could figure it out, I heard music from the hallway. Happy Birthday played in tinny mechanical tones, but skipping notes. "Who's there?" I said, then felt stupid for talking to myself. I followed the sound down the hall. As I turned the corner, a shiver ran down my spine. Freddy Fazbear was standing upright, staring at me with those glassy eyes that now seemed alive. "Hey, buddy!" it screeched in a glitched voice. I ran for the front door, and it slammed shut before I reached it, hard enough to shake the frame. The deadbolt turned by itself with a sharp click. Behind me, heavy footsteps thudded on the floor. The thing was coming after me. I ducked into the kitchen and crouched behind the island, trying to breathe quietly. This was insane. Animatronics don't just walk around. There had to be an explanation, but I couldn't think of one. Freddy found me in the kitchen. That broken song played on repeat. "Happy birthday to happy birth. Suddenly, the kitchen lights flickered twice. Then, the bulbs exploded. My flashlight threw crazy shadows on the wall. I heard whirring sounds of gears turning. I peeked around the edge. The animatronic stood in the doorway, with its arms raised at weird angles. Its head tilted sideways too far. Its jaw opened and closed in jerky movements. It took one lurching step forward, then another. I pressed against the cabinet, trying to disappear. The thing was 6 feet away now. I could smell old fabric and machine oil. Its head turned left and right, scanning like it was hunting. Then, it looked down, and its eyes locked onto mine. Its jaw snapped shut with a metallic clang that echoed in the small space as it lunged at me. One massive claw hand swept across the counter, sending dishes crashing. I rolled sideways as its other hand slammed down where my head had been, leaving deep scratches in the wooden island. "Stay away!" I yelled. Freddy got more violent. The mechanical sounds got louder and more aggressive. I scrambled through the back door, but it beat me there. Its claws raked across my shoulder, tearing through my shirt and cutting skin. The pain was searing, but fear kept me moving. I stumbled toward the door in the dark. That broken melody started up again, but now there was mechanical laughter with it, like a broken carnival ride. The last thing I remember was falling backward, my legs giving out from terror. My head hit something hard and everything went black. I woke up in the hospital 2 days later. My neighbors found me during a welfare check after the storm cleared. I had a bad concussion, dehydration, and cuts that needed stitches. The police said it looked like vandalism. Kids probably broke in during the power outage. My house was a wreck. Furniture was overturned, and Freddy was gone, along with some other valuable pieces. I didn't correct them. How do you tell cops that a soulless robot tried to kill you? How do you explain to them that you found the backup battery pack later in your garage that was supposed to be torn out of Freddy's chest cavity? Cables ripped clean off? The thing is, that battery was dead, completely drained, had been for months according to the date sticker. So how did Freddy move without power? The police report mentioned strange electrical activity during the storm. Lightning struck the power lines 3 times that night. Maybe some kind of surge got into the house wiring, into Freddy's circuits. I don't know. What I do know is that the animatronic disappeared that night and never turned up. Not in pawn shops, online, or anywhere else. The insurance paid out, but I never bought another collectible. Sometimes, late at night, I hear that broken melody in the distance, faint, like it's coming from far away. I tell myself it's just the wind, or maybe a neighbor's music box. But I installed security cameras after that, and motion sensors too, because part of me wonders if that thing is still out there somewhere, waiting for another storm to knock the power out, waiting for the lights to go dark again. And if it comes back, I'll be ready this time. I needed the money. That's the only reason I took the night cleaning job at the old Freddy Fazbear's location on Elm Street. The place has been shut down since the mid-90s after some tragedy nobody in town wants to discuss. Kids went missing, or so the rumors went. The owner, a property management company, just wanted someone to keep it from falling apart completely while they figured out what to do with it. $12 an hour to mop floors and dust off 20-year-old pizza grease seemed easy money for a guy between jobs. It was my first night and I was somewhat cynical. The place was huge and smelled like mold and rancid cooking oil, but I'd worked worse gigs. So those faded murals of cartoon animals that still covered the walls, their paint peeling away in long strips, didn't creep me out much. Neither did the old arcade machines that sat dark and silent, with screens cracked or entirely missing. What got to me was the stage. 3 animatronics stood there like broken mannequins, a bear, a rabbit, and a chicken. Some had stripped most of their fur years ago, leaving exposed metal endoskeletons with wires spilling out like guts. Their glass eyes reflected my flashlight beam whenever I walked past, and each time it was an effort not to stop and stare. The clock had struck 12 p.m. I was mopping near the stage when I heard the faint, mechanical clapping echoing from somewhere in the building. I instantly stopped and listened, but the sound had already faded. The building hadn't had power in years. The electrical company had disconnected everything after the place closed. But as I stood there in the dark, the stage lights suddenly flickered on for maybe 2 seconds before dying again. In that brief moment of light, I saw the bear's jaw twitch open. "Welcome back, kids," came a voice from the speakers, thick with static and barely audible before it went silent. My mop hit the floor with a wet slap. Every muscle in my body was telling me to run, but I forced myself to think rationally. It's an old building, dude, I reassured myself. Maybe it was some residual power in a backup battery somewhere. The animatronics were probably motion activated, responding to my movements. I nodded to myself. It made sense, but as I bent to pick up the mop, those faint giggles made my skin crawl. It started soft, like an echo from another room, but grew louder until it filled the entire building. It felt like I was standing at a kid's birthday party, but there were no kids. The building was empty, except for me. I ran for the front entrance, fumbling with my keys as the laughter continued behind me. But when I reached the doors, I found heavy chains wrapped around the handles. I hadn't noticed them when I came in. Maybe someone locked them after I started. "Hey!" I called out, pounding on the door. Behind me, the stage light surged brighter, and this time it stayed on. I watched in horror at those deflated balloons hanging from the ceiling. The tables in the dining area had paper plates and cups scattered across them, as if kids had just finished eating. The dining room had been empty minutes ago. Now every table was full. Pale children sat at every table, maybe a dozen of them, all staring directly at me. Their faces were too white and still. Their clothes looked like they came from decades ago. All of them had this wide grin on their faces, screaming, "Run!" "Get him! Get him! Get him!" they cheered. Suddenly, grinding metal filled the air as the three animatronics stepped down from the stage. Their movements were jerky and unnatural, servos winding with each step, wires dragged behind them like intestines. The bear spoke first. "It's time for the show!" I backed toward the kitchen, looking for another exit, but found myself trapped between the dining room and a wall of stainless steel equipment. The animatronics advanced slowly. Their glass eyes never left my face. "Don't you want to stay for the fun?" the rabbit asked, its head tilted at an impossible angle. The children at the table began to giggle again. They even clapped in joy like my fear amused them. I grabbed a heavy meat cleaver from the prep station and held it out in front of me. "Stay back!" The chicken animatronic lunged first, moving faster than anything that Broken should have been able to. Its metal claws raked against my forearm, tearing through my jacket into my skin. I swung the cleaver and connected with its neck joint, sending sparks flying as wires severed. It kept coming. The bear grabbed my shoulders with hands that felt like steel vices. I could smell motor oil and decay as it pulled me close to its ruined face. "You can't leave," it whispered. "No one ever leaves." I drove the cleaver into its chest, hitting something vital. The animatronic convulsed and released me as black fluid sprayed from its damaged components. I ran through the kitchen toward what I hoped was a back exit. The rabbit's footsteps pounded behind me. I found a door marked emergency exit and threw my full weight against it. It opened into an alley behind the building. I didn't stop running until I reached my car 3 blocks away. I tried explaining everything to the company once. They said I was hallucinating from stress. The building burned down 2 months later. They blamed faulty wiring, but the place hadn't had power in years. Sometimes I drive past the empty lot where Freddy Fazbear's used to stand. There's nothing there now except charred concrete and weeds. But on quiet nights, if I roll down my windows, I swear I can still hear children laughing in the distance. Some jobs aren't worth the money, and some places should stay closed forever. I've been delivering for Domino's for about 6 months. It was mostly campus dorms and suburban homes. Then came this one order, just past 10 p.m., for Maple Ridge Road. The address was way out, but the customer offered $50 for a large pepperoni, and I was greedy. The GPS kept glitching the whole ride, and the trees grew thicker and thicker until the road ahead was barely visible. Then, out of nowhere, the fog lifted, and a small house appeared at the end of the road. But just as I pulled into the driveway, the car jolted. "Ugh, are you kidding me?" I groaned as I got out and crouched next to the front wheel. A long metal screw was buried deep in the rubber, letting the air hiss out. But this wasn't some random hardware store screw. The threading looked like it belonged in a power station. I pocketed it and grabbed the pizza, figuring I'd deal with the tire situation later. The front door opened before I even made it to the porch steps. "Bummer," this old guy greeted, smiling way too wide for someone expecting pizza delivery at 11. From the look of it, he was your grandfather across the street. Gray hair, thick glasses, wearing a cardigan that probably came from Sears 20 years ago, but the vibe around him was nasty. "That's me, $22.50 for the large pepperoni." "Wonderful. Come inside while I find my wallet," he said, stepping back to make room. "Besides, sounds like you'd be here for a while. I heard a tire blow from my kitchen." It was getting chilly and I was stranded, so I followed him inside. Every wall in the living room was covered with missing child posters with those same desperate "missing" or "have you seen me" text across the top. Some looked fresh off the printer, others were sun-faded and curling at the edges like they'd been up there for years. "Whoa, quite a collection you have." "You bet. My uncle knew 'em all. Very well, in fact." "Your uncle was a cop?" "Oh, no," the old man chuckled. "Way powerful than that." The way he said "powerful" felt suspicious. I needed to call someone and get away ASAP. I immediately dialed Jake, trying to keep my voice normal while dozens of missing kids stared down at me. "Hey man, can you come pick me up?" "Yeah, the Maple Ridge order. Tire blew out." 20 minutes? Okay, cool. "Hey, you mind if I use your bathroom while I wait?" I asked, desperate for any excuse to get away. "Down the hall, second door on your right." I thanked him and headed down. At the far end, a door stood slightly ajar. Through the gap, I caught glimpses of what looked like a workshop. I knew I shouldn't snoop, but this place was weird enough to seek answers. I pushed the door open and stepped inside. Taped to the back wall was a blown-up photo of a man in a security uniform. His name tag read William Afton. Beneath it was a collage of newspaper clippings with headlines about missing children and a security guard who vanished before his trial. But what stopped me cold was what lay on the floor. Bonnie's head. I swear, it wasn't a toy or a replica. It was real or close enough to make anyone's skin crawl. Its purple fur was filthy, clumped with something dark and crusted. One eye dangled from a mess of wires, twitching slightly like it still wanted to see, while the other socket was just empty. Screws were scattered around the floor, like someone had been obsessively tearing Bonnie apart and putting her back together again and again. They were the same kind that blew out my tire. "That's my uncle." I spun around to find him blocking the only door in the room. Gone was the friendly grandfather smile. His eyes were bloodshot and wild. "I was named after him, you know." Will grinned, inching closer. "Uncle Billy taught me everything before he had to disappear." Taught you what?" "Ways to freedom. He understood that kids like you are meant for greater things." Will picked up one of the screws and examined it like it was a precious gem. "I've been following in his footsteps, helped a few find their way, gave them purpose." "You've been killing kids?" I finally realized the dark stains on Bonnie's head weren't rust. "Freeing them," Will corrected, smiling. "The animatronics make it beautiful." I looked at Bonnie's head again and saw scratches inside the jaw, like fingernails had clawed desperately at the metal, and that could have been my final mistake. Suddenly, I felt bony hands grabbing my throat. I couldn't breathe. We crashed into the workbench, making the tools fly everywhere. I ain't petite for a guy my age. 4 years on a farm gives you real muscle. Still, this 60-year-old was impossibly strong. He moved like he'd done this before, maybe for tens of times. "Give it up, kid. You'd love it up there," he grunted, squeezing harder. I drove my elbow into his nose. He gasped but didn't let go. Blood dripped down his broken nose. Still, he smiled bigger. I found a wrench from the scattered tools and swung it blindly at his head. The crack echoed through the room. Will's eyes rolled back, and he collapsed. I didn't check if he was breathing. Bolted straight out of the house and threw myself into my car. The engine sputtered twice before catching. I floored it down the gravel driveway as the blown tire shredded to nothing by the time I hit the asphalt. Jake found me in a gas station parking lot 20 minutes later, shaking uncontrollably. I told him an old guy attacked me. We rang the cops. They checked the house for hours but couldn't find anything. Will had vanished, leaving only those posters and that horrible Bonnie head. That was 8 months ago. They never found Will. I quit the job the next day. Yet, every time I see Five Nights at Freddy merchandise, I think about those scratches in Bonnie's jaw and wonder if Will's still out there, carrying on Uncle Billy's work.